Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of Pop Culture Revolver. On this episode, we're going to be discussing video games. We'll do a quick follow-up to our -1 episode that no one probably listened to, but hey, we were all there for it,
This is what,
so we
a
want
year
to keep
ago, at
talking
least?
about it.
It was in August of last year.
Yes, I think, 1 year and 1 month ago, we first tried out this concept. But now we're back, and
Well, it's the commitment to the that you should be admiring, folks. Because
Yeah, we've been working on this episode since
we
absolutely.
we crash and burn, and we keep going,
That's right.
and it makes us special.
So you know who you're listening to right now. I am Angie. I am the host of this show. We'll be doing other pop culture topics besides video games in the future, but today is definitely all video games. Joining me today is Jack.
That's
Say hello.
me. Hi, I'm Jack.
And also our friend JD.
Hey, that's me.
So our -1 episode, we were all very excited because the PT teaser trailer for Silent Hills had just come out. And if you
That game looks so good, you guys. I can't wait to play it.
Except,
Oh, you're not going to tell me any bad news, are you?
well, over the last year or so, it's been ups, it's been downs. You can't even download it anymore. If you didn't get it, if you didn't own a PS4 and already downloaded that game, you will never see it. Because not only are they not making the game anymore, they don't even want you to look at the trailer anymore.
Has that ever happened in the past with any kind of media?
You would think it would only be for, like, copyright issues or something that they would end up doing something like that.
It's so out of the ordinary that I have to think that if it turns out to just be some gigantic long con marketing ploy, I will not be surprised.
I don't know. It's bizarre. It really is.
Well, and it's such a weird thing because it wasn't a demo per se, but it was basically a demo.
Right.
And that's something that really, especially, I'm sure there's been demos for games that ended up getting canceled, but I've never heard of one getting pulled. But then I guess I can kind of understand it because,
Can you?
well, it's on the PlayStation Store or whatever, so it's something that it's a teaser for a game that will never come out. And I could see why it's basically saying coming soon, the clown died, to a theater near you, and leaving that poster.
You have a lot of games where they had endings that teased sequels that never happened too.
Yeah.
Do you go back and you? I don't know.
I mean, at least you're getting a full game experience out of it.
Well, it's
even
not
if you
like
never
this
got
was just a
sequel.
trailer. This was like a concept demo for something that, really hadn't quite been done in such a way before. You had walking simulators and such, but not to this extent where it kind of really drew you in a little bit more than most.
The only thing that, because, the whole thing with Konami and Kojima, there's been so much speculation. He definitely seems to be done with the company. The programmer, one of the main programmers for the Fox engine, has also just left Konami. So it would almost makes me wonder if maybe Kojima said, you know what, take that down. I don't want it associated with you anymore. If I end up making this into something else, I want it to be my property and, solely related to my company.
I'm not sure if that's how that works with
Yeah, I mean, you
corporate
wouldn't think.
ownership and such.
You wouldn't think, but I don't know. It's just very bizarre.
Well, we debated last time how much of that teaser was going to actually be the game, and it's quite possible nothing in there was what they were actually planning on doing.
Right.
So, and
you're right.
I know that Guillermo del Toro and Kojima have gone on record saying they still have plans to work together in some capacity in the future.
Right.
What that is, whether it's a game or if it's a movie or it's a book or whatever, it's great news for us because that means eventually we'll see something from this pairing. But
Right.
Eventually,
it may
yeah.
not be Silent Hills with the name scratched off, or it may be, or I don't know. I mean, it's just
And I
it's
guess
hard to say.
the main source of doubt I have is Del Toro has this really long history of talking about things he'd love to work on and never has the time to work on. So it's kind of like, well, okay, yeah, it'll happen, but when? I don't know.
Well, and then there's movies and stuff that he actually fully intends on making and is actually going through it, and then just bad luck or bad timing happens, and
right.
like in the Mouth of Madness or in the Mountains of Madness, or Pacific Rim 2, which was recently announced as being put on indefinite hold, though.
Right.
Guillermo says that they're just waiting on a new draft of the script or something. But he may be just being really
Del Toro-ish.
Yeah, he may just be trying to put a good spin on it, but we'll see.
Yeah, but it's interesting because there was an article I just saw today on Polygon, I believe it was. Let me double check, make sure I'm not making stuff up. Where a French blog site claims that they verified that the only console games that Konami's going to make going forward is their soccer series. Whether that's true, I don't think Konami has actually responded to that yet, but it certainly seems like they don't have any other properties left. Because everything I've seen says, like, it seems like Metal Gear is done with 5. And I've even heard rumors that the game was supposed to be more, and they kind of, like, there's a whole third act that never got made. And they were just in such a rush to just get it out and be done with it.
Right.
So,
well, with
I don't know.
Kojima being fired, I can kind of see, like, they may have just, like, I think he was technically not fired, but he basically was leaving after the end of 5.
Right.
I could see, like, him just saying, let's just hurry this up and get on. This isn't coming out the way I want it to. But I haven't played Ground Zeroes or
Phantom Pain.
Phantom Pain, yet. So I'm not certain about that, but how well it came out. I've heard mostly positive reviews of it, but it doesn't seem like as big. It seems like a very different game than the main series has been.
What I keep hearing over and over again, it's the best gameplay of the series, it's the worst story of the series. Or it's very, very light on story compared to the rest of the series, which to me is like, it's Metal Gear. How could you not have a story?
I never played Metal Gear for the gameplay. It was always for the story.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel. But I don't know.
Honestly, you could say that about a lot of the popular Konami properties. Like Silent Hill, the gameplay really isn't that great.
I mean, even the best ones were like, you're just kind of like, well, I'm dealing with the controls. I'm not really in love with them.
Right, yeah.
I'm dealing with the controls so that I can get more into the atmosphere and story.
I would personally be very shocked if Kojima does not end up going to Kickstarter in some capacity for a game in the future, whether it's a Metal Gear-like or the Silent Hills concept, or obviously not called Silent Hills, but I would be amazed if that's not the route he takes going
I think
forward.
he would set records doing that.
I don't think I kind of have gotten the impression that he's probably, I don't think he'd want to do another Metal Gear-like, at least not right now.
Right. Well, it wouldn't be in that universe for certain,
No, but even like, I kind of get the impression he's
been kind of done with Metal Gear since the second one, but he keeps coming back for whatever reason for sequels. Or kept coming back, I guess.
Hey, no. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but it's certainly, I don't know. I don't think Silent Hills was pulled because he wasn't interested anymore. That's for certain.
No, and Silent Hills is a very different thing. In fact, I think I was really excited for that just because I think it was going to be a new opportunity for him to take his fourth wall breaking approach to storytelling,
right?
Well,
and doing it with horror, which is I think would play well.
Absolutely.
He's always handled horror elements really well, like that one boss fight in Metal Gear Solid 4, the first woman that you fight.
Yeah, the Octa camo.
Yeah,
or whatever it is.
you probably remember more about it than I do. It was a while back, but yeah, that was very well done. So to see him do something like that in a more long form through the course of an entire game Yeah, well, that's a shame
Is
if we don't
anyone
get to
else
see
having
that.
trouble hearing us besides Igor? He says it's fading, but I mean, we didn't change anything. I don't know why it would suddenly start lowering in volume. Yeah, and honestly, I don't know how to change it either, other than raising the input, which may lead to us feedbacking.
I'll
But
play some
sorry, I
light music
apologize
while
for
we.
interrupting the flow of conversation. I just want to make sure everybody's hearing us out there. What were we saying?
We were talking about
His capacity to make a good horror game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you? Because I honestly get the impression that he was he's done the spy thing so much, and he's kind of told that story. So I really don't think he'd do another Metal Gear type game, even with even if he had all the the money in the world to make it. I think he'd rather just do something new and different. And that.
Yeah.
He's done a good job with making each one kind of its own sort of feel.
Yeah.
I haven't played either of the fifth ones yet, but
Right.
At least for the first four, it seemed like there was a very distinctly different kind of genre to itself, while still staying with the same universe, which is hard to pull off.
Right. I mean, the first one feels different from the second, which feels different from the third, which feels different from the fourth. I mean, but all of them. I mean, and you can nitpick which is better, but all of them are really pretty highly regarded in general. So
Yeah.
to have that type of record, and then he's gonna be fine wherever he goes, whether he goes to another company or if he starts to just do his own thing with the Kickstarter world or whatever.
Right.
He's gonna land on his feet. I'm not terribly worried
absolutely.
about that, but it is really disappointing to not be able to get PT. I really think that we were all super excited a year ago for it, and now it's
Right.
just. And I think we've all been in mourning for the last year. That's the reason. That's going to be the new official reason as to why
the hiatus was so long.
Right.
That's it. There you
Even
go.
before we got the news, we were in mourning.
We knew.
So.
Yes.
We're that clever.
We've got the inside scoop, people. You should follow us.
We hear it on the radio.
Radio? What's going on with that radio?
All right. Anyway, let's talk about games that are actually going to exist and continue to at
games
this moment.
that exist, games that we've actually played. I recently indulged a bit and joined the next generation of consoles and got a PS4 that was bundled with Arkham Knight.
Me too.
Now, I did so because it was a really good deal, for one thing. There was like a sale that Target was having. I ended up saving $70 off the price of it, which was pretty amazing, and that doesn't factor in the fact that you're getting a game for free. And I chose it out of the different bundles because I was like, oh, I really loved Arkham Asylum. I enjoyed Arkham City, so it's the same series. Why would I not like this? Now, I understand buyer beware. You should be doing your research first, but I really feel like it should have just been called Grand Theft Auto Batman. And then I would have known that I would not like this game. I'm like currently about 6 to 8% through the story, I think, last time I checked it, because they want me to... Commissioner Gordon's driving a car, and I'm supposed to drive in the Batmobile and chase after him, and then there's these tanks attacking him, and instead of him just staying put so I can destroy the tanks, I've got to race after them and shoot them, but guess what? You cannot shoot your guns while you're moving. You have to stop, move your Batmobile into tank mode, put up the cannon, aim the cannon, shoot them, and then go back into racing. And I'm just like, I hate you, game. I hate you. I hate you so much.
Well, they have two different control schemes on it, right?
Right, yeah, we did finally discover there's an alternate control scheme mode that you don't have to hold down L2 the entire time you're in tank mode.
I guess that was painful to have to do that.
God, it was so
It is
painful.
a bit of a... When you're doing that for a long time, that really does...
Yeah, well, like,
get on
especially
your nerves.
because before that I had to shoot down the helicopter, which pretty much meant I was in tank mode the whole time. So I'm like sitting there trying to do that. Oh, I guess one of the things about this is, like, I feel like when you have a long-running series, I understand you want to change it up a little bit, but I don't know that you need to change it up as much as they have with those games. Maybe it's just me, but, like, Arkham Asylum was just a complete joy to play and be Batman.
Why is that? What's different? I mean, obviously there's more cars in this one, but what about it did you like?
Well, Arkham Asylum is basically a Metroidvania type game where you're in you're in a set setting. You kind of there's certain areas you can't get to until you find certain gadgets, and it's basically more about the exploration and there's some cool fights and stuff like that, but it's a lot of it's a more claustrophobic
puzzle
game.
Solving with some brawling and some really fun horror elements in the midst of it to kind of break it up.
Okay, all right.
And it had some problems, but it was mostly...
It wasn't perfect, but...
I mean, like, I kind of thought the end boss fight was kind of lame, to be honest. But,
yeah.
But it was a really solid game. And then Arkham City made it into an open world game, sandbox type game, and that really, I think, it was okay.
Yeah.
I liked it and Arkham Origins when it worked.
I had trouble with the gliding sometimes in Arkham City. Especially there was that one challenge where you had to keep, like, it was like some kind of Ra's al Ghul test where he was making you go from, like, mountaintop to mountaintop or something.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Virtual thing. But for the most part, it was workable, and it allowed you to explore the world and add on to, the existing game. And then it seems like, and I didn't play Origins at all. I don't know if they added anything for that one.
Origins, I mean, there's a few, like, minor, like, gadgets and stuff but it was mainly just kind of a retexturing of the original of Arkham City, and more or less set in the same place with maybe a few different, like, certain areas weren't walled off because of the story elements in Arkham City, but it was still
pretty
more
much
or less
the same.
Yeah, it was just kind of like it's just with a new story,
right.
and it was at winter, so
okay.
So it sounds like they changed it pretty drastically between the last one and Arkham Knight
and
versus the rest of them.
The fans were crying for the Batmobile, so they were like, okay, we're going to give you the Batmobile.
Well, sure, I get that, but yeah, to integrate it into that sort of level seems
and I mean, maybe,
much,
and I know, like I said, I know it's not fair. It's early. Maybe they're trying to essentially walk me through, like, tutorials, but being actually part of the story. But it's just... It's a really big challenge for me, and it's a totally different type of game than what I've played before.
I can see that. I have managed to 100% the story mode. There's some of the challenges I've not done, and I don't bother with any, like, the, like,
little
multiplayer
quest,
or I mean, all the side quests I've done, like, as far as if it's story related, like capturing Man-Bat or whatever, I've done all that, got all the Riddler trophies, did all that stuff. And it's a really fun game as far as that. In fact, it's probably, story-wise, probably one of the best out of the non-Arkham Asylum games. Like, of the City, Origins, and Knight, Knight is probably best.
Okay.
I mean, there's some, like, the identity of who the Arkham Knight is kind of obvious if you're a comic nerd and you're paying attention to where the story's going. It's kind of they set it up, but they don't make it super obvious. So I guess it's all pretty good. I just don't. It's the driving stuff was always just something I kind of had to put up with and very rarely enjoyed. There are certain ones I liked better than others. The Riddler races were always just hell. I mean, that was
any races. I've always hated races.
I've never been a big fan.
Even racing.
I don't see race personally. I'm colorblind that way. No. You're gonna hear that sound effect a lot.
Yeah, better not set a trend with that, right?
But yeah, the races were. The only good thing is that if you get through a lap, it'll remember which lap you got through, because it's more about memorizing the pattern than it is actually beating a speed.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I really hope that if they do another game, and I think Rocksteady has said that they are done with the series.
Yeah, that's what I read recently.
But then again, they didn't do Arkham Origins, so I have a feeling that WB Interactive or whoever's making these games they're gonna be somebody else is gonna take over. It may not have the same crew or something like that, but I have this feeling that they're going to just continue to plug these out because it's one of the better selling games.
Right.
And in between you and I, it sold 2 PS4s, so I'm, I'm sure that they're going to appreciate that aspect. But
absolutely,
yeah, it was I really like. There's certain bits I really liked. They used some really obscure, well, not obscure, but like less of the popular villains and side characters.
Without getting too spoilery, one of the things that excited me about it was that the Scarecrow was the main villain. Do they do anything like what they did in Asylum with him?
No, but
okay.
Yes. There's something going on with Batman
Okay.
that is not entirely related to Scarecrow, that kind of has a similar effect to some of the more creepier elements that you have to do in Arkham Asylum. It plays out a little differently. I don't think it's quite as creepy, but there's definitely like there's moments where you're like, okay, that's pretty effective. And I really don't want to say too much more than without spoiling.
Sure.
So.
I guess I'm mostly just looking for like something to help me like get an incentive to get past that really annoying driving thing, and maybe. So if there's something in there that
a reason to play her expensive new toy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have a reason to play it, and we'll get to the game that I am playing in a little bit, but. First, I wanted to go ahead and switch it over to you, JD, and see what games you're playing right now.
Speaking of games, that have changed quite a bit from where they started. You're playing the latest King's Quest, aren't you?
Yes, I am. And it is a episodic game, kind of like the games that Telltale does, where they release it in chunks. Mm-hmm. I have not actually beat Chapter 1 of the new King's Quest yet, but I've played probably a good 3 hours or so, which is actually really surprising because I've played those Telltale games and usually those top off at about 2 hours of game.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So is it absolute garbage like the rest of the King's Quest series leading up to it was?
What a leading question.
I'm good with those, I hear.
I really enjoy it. It is not a throwback to the classic King's Quest, but at the same time, it does not completely ignore that classic style of adventure game elements. It's not like it because some of those Telltale games are basically just stories where you get to have an interactive conversation. Where you don't really there might be some minor puzzle solving, but it's not really
it's about as interactive as turning the page of a book.
Right. And then you get to decide what you say in response, which can make a difference in the story and how it plays out, but doesn't really make you feel like you're playing a game.
So-and-so will remember that.
Right.
Yeah, that's always what happens in the Telltale games, and you're like,
and there is some of that in the new King's Quest, but it's also a lot just of puzzle solving and trying to figure out basically classic adventure gaming. And in fact, you get early on you pick up an axe, and the whole story is narrated by an elderly King Graham talking about one of his earliest adventures to his granddaughter. And
Princess Bride of them.
Yeah, it is very much like that, and it's so. And he talks about how he picked up the axe, and he said, "And I'm telling you, I did not use that axe against every single thing that I ran across." And I'm like, yeah, that's the classic adventure way of I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna click on every item, randomly to see till something works. So there's some nice little callbacks and things like that to the original games, but it's not like you don't need to have played them. You might get a little bit sick of some of the puns, though they at least call it out in this game where people are like, "Oh, God damn it, Graham, you're making me," where they just react to whatever pun he has to say. And if you're a super hardcore fan, you might be a little bit annoyed because they make young, not before he was even Sir Graham, just young Graham, a bit of a spaz. He'll occasionally just get super excited about something, like, and he's like, he's like, "What's in that pot? Is it a potion of invisibility? Is it going to turn, dread monsters into, blah, blah," and he just starts spazzing out, talking about all the possibilities. So, that turns.
That's already a step up from the old series. That
right,
they've actually got some semblance of some kind of personality.
Right, it is. It's definitely a lot more.
Not a bunch of walking bricks with faces, as the other one was.
I know that early on, I think a lot of people were put off because early on, the first part of the game is a lot of quick time event type stuff where you have to, respond to you have like a bow and arrow and you have to shoot things out of the way before.
Which is another Telltale convention.
Right.
So and kind of goes with the territory.
And to be honest, from what I've heard, I think this game was originally supposed to be developed by Telltale.
I had heard that too, yeah.
And for whatever reason that fell through, but it still has a lot of the earmarks of that. And I don't know if this was them saying we still own the rights and we're just going to take that and give it to somebody else, or they just kept going. They just were inspired by that, or what?
I think that is kind of the modern point and click now, so it makes sense, even not necessarily to copy them, but just to follow similar conventions, I guess.
Yeah, you go with what sells.
Yeah.
You model it off of that usually.
It also has a bit of an element that I haven't, like I said, I haven't even gotten through the first chapter yet, so I haven't done any replays, but apparently there's a part early on where you kind of get to decide. You have three options as to how to respond to a situation, and it's kind of a throwback to an old LucasArts game, one of the Indiana Jones games,
Fate of Atlantis, yeah,
right, where you get to decide
You're right.
how the path you choose will affect how the gameplay goes.
Well, that's really funny because the things that you're talking about, those are no innovations that happen in the actual series. These are all things that came from the LucasArts kind of games.
Right.
So it's funny that they're modeling it off of that, and yet it's a King's Quest game.
Right, and it does feel. Well, I mean, a lot of it's just, I think, the evolution of like Angie said, the evolution of point and click adventure games.
Sure, but I mean, I would think that there would be a bit more of even just a sort of nod toward, boy, you sure are dying a lot, or any of these hallmarks of Sierra games if you're going to use a property that's as well known as King's Quest.
And this is a game where you can die, but there's no walking death states where you're just
nobody would tolerate that these days.
Yeah. So you will. You can occasionally you'll just die, and then it'll zoom out and you'll see the elderly King Graham and his granddaughter, and he's like, and he'll make an awful pun about how you died, and she'll just kind of, "Grandpa," and then it'll put you back in the game right before you die.
Oh, okay, so it's kind of like the Prince of Persia game. The one that came out. Yeah. Sam, thank you. I couldn't remember the subtitle, but yeah, like that was. That's not how it happened at all.
Right.
Well, that's neat.
It also has Christopher Lloyd as elderly King Graham.
Oh, go on. Serious?
Awesome. Yeah. So,
I can't even imagine that.
It's a little weird, and to be honest, it's not really how I picture Graham, but and it's such a marked difference from the young King Graham.
Right. Which way do you think we should go now, Mr. Cedric? King Cedric, yeah. There's a game for you.
Ooh, what's up, boys?
Stop. No, just stop.
assuming that's the owl.
Half of our chat just left after you started doing that voice. And flashbacks. Jesus.
They got into DeLoreans and actually took themselves out of ever entering the chat.
Marty, I don't know how they found me.
Jack, I think you'd actually really enjoy it. It's one of those games where I think it's enough of the throwback to the original that you'll get some smiles, even if you kind of want to strangle some,
The originals I enjoyed whenever I was younger, and I go back and I play them, and I don't even think it's a modern sensibility thing, because I remember King's Quest V being like 11 or 12 playing that, and with the cat with the boot that you got to throw at the dog or whatever that puzzle is, the easiest Walking Dead puzzle to get into.
Oh yeah.
Even back then, I was like, no, that's a bug that somebody didn't take out of the game. I swore that they shouldn't have programmed it that way. But
no, you're absolutely right.
I mean, so, even back then, I realized, this isn't really good game design, is it?
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I don't know if like abandoning some of the Sierra conventions is probably an okay thing to do.
No, it's a good thing to do. It's just funny that with this property, they've abandoned them so obviously.
Well, it's not a Sierra game.
Isn't it?
No, it's not.
Well, it
right?
actually is. There is a new Sierra.
Okay.
They're the developers, I believe. I think it's still published under Activision. I don't remember.
No, what isn't really?
I honestly
Stuff
don't
by
remember.
EA. That's what.
I mean, it's definitely not the Williamses anymore.
No,
Thank
They're not
heavens. To
involved.
its benefit, yes.
You have very strong feelings.
I do.
But it is definitely, it's a good way of revisiting an old classic and still making it feel modern and not like an antiquated thing, like some of the Gabriel Knight, like when we played that.
Speaking of bringing back bad memories, I can't, that was such a disappointment. They could have done so much better with that.
Yeah, I'm really
We're
surprised.
talking about the remake of Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers, that came out, last October? Last year at some point.
Sometime last year. I remember, or at least maybe early this year at the latest. But
I think you did a few live streams. I was on one of them with you, maybe the first one, and
we
were so excited. And
yeah, it was like,
and
then
for
for 2 minutes.
complaining about the New Orleans accuracies.
Right, or lack thereof.
well, that's because by that point it was just like, well, the game is just so much utter like. It was so handholdy in some ways, and then just completely.
Out of all the things that they changed, I'm pretty sure they kept the slow ass narrator, right?
Yeah.
King Graham, I'm saying it again. I just got it on the mind. Yeah. Gabriel doesn't know what to do with that. Period.
Yeah. No.
3 periods makes an ellipsis.
Well, and it was one of those remakes that ends up being kind of pointless because it was so loyal to the original in some ways.
It was, but they shitted up the art by making it way too bright and colorful.
Right, and then
there was
the
no
art
mood
was
anymore.
crap. The art was crap and didn't really have the polish of those.
Oh man, I remember the crazy lip sync they had on a couple of the characters.
Yeah, well, you had trouble hearing it anyway, just because of my.
Well,
live
no, it
stream.
wasn't that. It was just the animations that they used just looked ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It was.
If you want to know more about our feelings on that, watch the live stream. We'll link it in the YouTube thing or whenever this goes up on archive.
But yeah, was not good. But this is a really good way of like revisiting a series, doing something that's a completely new story, and actually just making it better, making it like there's more personalities, there's more. The puzzles are challenging enough that you won't just go, oh, I need to do this and walk away. You have to play around a little bit, which is probably why I've actually not beaten it yet.
Let me put you on the spot here.
Okay.
What makes for a better adventure game puzzle than something that's obvious? Other than because the only thing I can think of is like you either have something that's like, oh, I know what to do here. I use this on this. Or it just turns into rubbing objects on other objects until something happens.
There should be a lot. It should have a balance. You should be able to puzzle it out and there's going to be ones where you're going to look at it and just go, okay, yeah, obviously I'm going to do this. But there's some of them that you know, I don't mind like a little bit of experimentation on a puzzle where you have to like, well, let me try, you know, rubbing this on that. And
what do I have in my inventory that could potentially go with this?
Right. What I'm talking about is where you have a puzzle where, let's just say you have a door made out of paper, and in order to open it, you need to use the paper cutter. Meanwhile, you've got like a fucking pair of scissors and an axe in your inventory, and I can't use that. You know, shit like that.
Yeah, that is always. In fact, that's one reason I really like this game is the fact that they often will, and even like after you get past that early section that kind of supposedly decides whether you want to use either talking or puzzle solving or action to solve puzzles, it will do. There's still like elements where you can kind of still choose like do you want to take the action path or do you want to take the conversation path or whatever.
You know, that's kind of shades a Quest for Glory as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously it doesn't have the RPG elements, but it does kind of remind me of some of that.
Yeah, where
there's multiple solutions to a problem.
Are there totally different paths for each one? Like you'll see scenes if you take the wits path versus if you just want to do quick time events? Because I'm guessing that's how they do the fists thing.
I have not played. Picked the compassion path, which is I guess like the talkie path. So I've not tried anything else, and I'm avoiding any playthroughs until I've beaten through my chapter. So
Makes sense.
So
Noel says in the chat, "You sure you aren't thinking of the jittery lip sync animation in Zork, Jack? No, that was terrible."
No, that whole game was terrible.
That he means Return to Zork.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. if we're disparaging Zork, it's probably Return to Zork. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, the best way to play that game is not to. That's how you win. You don't play it at all.
Well, then I guess I won.
You won.
Never played
Did you watch our live stream?
I did.
Then I'm sorry, you lost.
Okay.
Early CD technology.
Oh
Yeah.
boy. Yeah. Well, what have you been playing, Angie? You've been playing a pretty
What
new
I've been
creepy
playing
game, huh?
Is what I wanted from Arkham Knight. I'm getting from Shadow of Mordor, Middle Earth's Shadow of Mordor. I got the Game of the Year edition, so it's got some extra bonuses on it, which is nice. But it's essentially Arkham Asylum set in Mordor, which makes no sense, really. But you're a ranger who has been guarding the kind of line between Gondor and Mordor, and then shit happens, and you get bonded with a wraith. And that pretty much gives you the detective mode, like Batman has in the Arkham Asylum games. You get to see where all your enemies are hiding and everything. And it's really fun because you're being in Mordor, you're surrounded by these orcs. And they have what I believe they call the Nemesis system, where instead of it just being a bunch of generic enemies with, you know, your set bosses in there, they have these orcs, they have all these little traits and personalities. And in the case of like one mission, I was trying to run from one section to another real quick and ended up disturbing some orcs. They called for help, and I kind of got overwhelmed, and I died. And all of a sudden, the one just generic grunt who killed me, it says, you know, so and so just got upgraded to captain because he killed me, so he got bonus points, and now everybody respects him. And it's like, and it happens like that. There was one time I was low on life, and this dude jumped down off a mountain ridge, and it said he specifically likes to prey on the weak, so that's why he found me. They have like these just really, really interesting dynamic coding things that I've never seen in a game before. That, because, you know, generally when you've got like a beat 'em up type thing, which in a lot of ways this is, because you're just going around killing orcs and collecting items, upgrading, leveling up, etc. But this, you know, like it gets repetitive and it gets boring, and you're just going from story beat to story beat. But this makes the in between so much more interesting. and it's incredible. Have you played it, JD? I know you've got the PS4, so.
I do have PS4. I actually own it on Steam.
Oh, okay. So you played the game, or you haven't had a chance to yet?
I played it. My brother got it for me for Christmas last year, so I don't have the Game of the Year edition. But I agree with everything you said. It's a lot of fun. I don't remember why I didn't end up beating it. I think I remember because there was a captain or something that there's a problem with the game. Well, I don't know if it's a problem, but there is if you continue to die from a captain, he keeps getting upgrades.
Yeah.
And some of them get pretty damn
really powerful, huh?
Like some of them are like you have to have like a very specific narrow set of circumstances to do damage to them. Or at least be able to kill them off.
Yeah, you're because that's another thing. They have strengths and they have weaknesses, and yes, some of them it's like they won't like you can't do certain attacks against them because they'll just immediately shrug you off, and different things like that. So I could see what you're talking about because I noticed that like there was one thing I kept getting stuck on. And every time I would die, everybody would move. They'd fight each other and they'd move up in the ranks and they'd level up. And I was like, okay, this could be potentially very bad in the future. Yeah.
But I do like the idea that you can like basically convert people to your side to like even and you can kind of slowly take over, but people will like. But other rival captains will try to vie for that person's territory or whatever, and they'll fight, and sometimes your guys will lose, so you have to go. You can go try to help them if you really want to. There's a lot of like. To be honest, it's one of those games where I don't even really remember anything about the story, other than just like most basic beats that you mentioned.
Well, I think that may be one of the issues of the story because it's set in between The Hobbit and then the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and so it's like there's no major conflict happening there beyond the fact that Sauron's gaining strength.
Right.
So you almost can't do anything that's really gonna be earth-shattering.
Well, yeah, you know how it's gonna end too. Right?
Huh?
You know how it's already going to end, too. If you've seen the movies.
Yeah. I mean, they put Gollum in there, I guess, to try and give you somebody familiar. I haven't done a whole lot with him yet, but... Which, I mean, I appreciate, but then on the other hand, you're also like, wow, this is not as well animated as he looks in the films, and it's... like, I don't know, I guess it was distracting to me. I guess I had too high
probably had a few more $1 million to spend on the film, too.
Right, right. And
even
it's not
if it was
Andy
more than 10
Serkis,
years
I'm
ago.
pretty sure, so... His voice isn't quite the same either, but I think it probably has room for improvement. Like I said, obviously I haven't finished it yet, but it's definitely like I started Skyrim and I was like, I am gonna play Skyrim. I know everybody says this game like absorbs your life, and I'm totally gonna do it. And I played one night and I never went back, and I don't know what it is. Like sometimes those worlds are just so big.
Yeah.
That I don't even know where to go. I don't know what to do. But this one, maybe it's because it's the familiar territory of the Tolkien universe or whatever, but like when something comes up, I go, okay, well, am I powerful enough to beat that guy yet? No, probably not. Okay, I'm going to stick to my main mission.
Well, I wonder if it's the same reason you don't care for the Grand Theft Auto games. You like something with more structure to it.
But I feel like this one, the open worldness is not as distracting to me as it normally is. Like, because like JD's saying, like the actual main story is still kind of weak, but the side missions don't really come down to much other than like defeat this captain or go collect this item. But they all kind of feel the same, and I don't know. It's hard to explain, I guess. But
okay, fair enough.
It's drawn me in a way that no other open world game ever has.
Well, it sounds like it has a lot of attention to detail, and I feel like that's a large part of what makes a game memorable and can draw you in much more so than something that just tries to go for a broad genre appeal or something.
Right.
Well, it's an open world, but it's also not so open that you feel like lost in it. It's not something where it's like, we've made it, literally 40 miles wide in every direction, and so it'll take you days if you were to walk across it or anything. No, it's
Right.
it's a reasonable size 2 maps really, and then you just kind of, and the basic quests are like go collect these flowers or do this or that type of thing. It's nothing like terribly like there's nothing in there that feels like, oh my God, there's so much to do. I don't know where to begin. I get that. I had the same problem with the Elder Scrolls. I kind of gotten into Skyrim after trying it a few times, and I still have never beaten the game. I've played that. I've done so many starts of that game, and
I'm terrified to start it. Yeah, because I'm gonna lose my entire life into that thing probably. That's the way that I
could. Says, but like I said, I lost one night and nothing more, so I don't know. But yeah.
So, and it also helps when you start to play that game and you start realizing that there is you know how to play it a little bit more, so that way you can kind of give yourself direction. So that way Skyrim will you can go to this place and they'll tell you where the next place to go get this thing is if that's what you want to do, or you can go here to go get this guild quest or whatever, it's stuff like that. But it is one of those things where when you just start off, it just seems like, and it's kind of like the Fallout games or or at least the more recent ones where you kind of just got, okay, big open world. I guess I'll just start wandering that way.
Right, yeah.
So you got Batman, you got Lord of the Rings, you're playing those big budget kind of open world sort of things. You're also playing kind of the opposite end of that spectrum there with a new indie type game, right?
You asking me?
Yes, you. That's what you're doing, right?
Well, it was actually a Kickstarter game. It was one of those things where I saw it. It's called Fran Bow. It's a point and click as well. And the Kickstarter came up, and it was this very Tim Burton-esque art style, and I just really was drawn to it. And I was like, yeah, this looks really cool. It's a point and click. I love those type of games. So yeah, I'll support them. Why not? And then I proceeded to get emails every few months or so of, we're still working on the games, guys. Just
the old Kickstarter
patient.
shuffle, yeah.
We promise it's gonna come out eventually. Oh wait, we just had a challenge with this. And okay, But then it did actually come out, and I haven't had a chance to play it, of course, much. But I've been through, I think, most of the demo. And the interesting thing about that is that it kind of has what I guess you would sort of call a Silent Hill mechanic, where she takes these pills and she sort of enters this really bloody other world. And so you have to kind of go back and forth between the two to help solve the different puzzles and progress. So, I haven't gotten very far in it yet, but it does look very neat and interesting and worth checking out.
That sounds actually cool. I will have to, looking up the images right now, screenshots.
Yeah. And I think the main story is this little girl, her parents died, I think they were murdered. And so they put her in a mental hospital, so she's trying to get out the mental hospital, and her kitty is supposed to help her with solving her parents' murder. So
is this any relation to Laura Bow?
No. I have to admit that was my first thought too when I first heard about it.
No, but I'm looking at the screenshots. It actually looks like a very interesting. I like the aesthetic of the art,
the art style just pulled me in immediately.
And then it's just a nice creepy atmosphere, which I think we've all kind of been on record of kind of liking that type of thing to one degree or another. But
right.
So I will have to check that one out.
And then this one I really feel like I can barely say anything because I definitely haven't played it yet. But Undertale. Undertale just came out, and that one is kind of Earthbound-esque from everything I've heard. It's an RPG, kind of, obviously a quirky one when you say Earthbound, but what sounds most interesting to me is that you can actually talk to the enemies instead of fighting them. You have the option between the two.
Interesting.
So yeah, maybe in a future episode I can talk more about that one because I really want to check that one out. But
yeah, I'd be interested to see how they handle that because you've been
of-
able to interact with enemies beyond fighting in other RPGs.
Sure, yeah.
You could get them to join your party in some cases. And things like
But
that.
yeah,
I
that
think
one,
in
like I
Dragon
said, it's just
Quest
been
and
getting a
later
lot of buzz recently with some of the people I follow. So, what else have you been playing, JD?
I recently completed a game. I think it's been out for a little while now, but I just recently picked it up called The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. It is a first-person 3D game, but it's kind of more of a point and click in some ways. It's basically you play as Paul Prospero, who is a detective who goes to this small town to find this boy named Ethan Carter who has vanished, hence the title.
Oh wow, I didn't connect that.
I know it's kind of highbrow. I understand.
I know. Yeah, I'm difficult with that.
It's a game where you go through and you kind of go through this kind of, and like a lot of these type of it reminds me a little bit of Gone Home in the sense that it is a very empty world where you kind of walk around and explore and try to piece what happened.
I've seen quite a few of those in the past few years.
It seems like the buzz of Gone Home is
It's a lot more gamey than Gone Home was, where there's puzzles to solve.
Okay.
Yeah,
you seem to have some sort of psychic powers where you will go through and you'll see like a bloody train, and so on the bumper, and so then you'll go look around and you'll find like other clues, and then it'll point you to like if you like there's a hand crank for the train, so you look at it and you'll kind of point you in the direction that you need to go, but you still have to find where the hand crank is. So you get to explore some more, and you get to find like little clues, and then you get to and usually within the same area you'll find like enough stuff that you can kind of piece together what happened in that scenario, and then you have to kind of figure out the chronology, like okay, looks like this guy ran in here and then he did this, and then this guy responded and they ran off this way, and so it's kind of a little bit of a detective type story.
Mm.
So the environment tells the story, that kind of thing.
To a degree. I mean, there's and then but yeah, you actually will get visions of what actually happens. And the only like kind of downside to that is that it becomes very easy. Like it'll let you know pretty quick if you messed up. Like if you're trying to piece together how the scenario played out, if you messed up, it'll just stop like in the middle, like after playing whatever scene you had first. If that's not right, it'll just stop. So you have to go, okay, I know that's not first, so I'll go back and I'll change this and put this one as first, and then you can kind of keep going through it. And there's really no penalty so you kind of just it's not a very hard game.
I'm sure most walking sim types aren't. But I am fascinated by those games. I've got a bunch in my Steam queue that I haven't gotten to yet. There's a few that I've already played too. One I can't remember the name of. The other's like one of the first ones, Dear Esther. I didn't care for much. I liked Gone Home a lot. Didn't care so much for Dear Esther. It was kind of overly artsy and pretentious.
That's how I felt about Dear Esther too. Yeah. I know there's another one that's out that I haven't played yet called Everyone's Gone Home to the Rapture.
Yeah, everybody's been talking about that.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that.
And I kind of get the impression that this is very similar to Ethan Carter, but
it's the same people that made Dear Esther and the second Amnesia, Chinese Room.
Right. So I'm intrigued by that one. But I really like the story and Ethan Carter, though. It's one of those things where you kind of think you know where it's going, and then the ending, I don't want to say sucker punches you, but it's definitely like, oh, okay, that was a thing.
So not satisfying then?
I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. It's one of those things where it just left. It was definitely not what I was expecting.
That doesn't sound like satisfaction.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it was. I thought it was bad.
I know what you're saying.
It was definitely. It's one of those I kind of want to go back and play it again at some point, but after I've had a little bit of distance from it.
Right, that makes sense.
So,
Walking sims fascinate me because it's a very different way to do a game than has been attempted up until recently. And it's really interesting to me to see how many different ways that they can pull that off and make it a different enough experience to where it's not just, okay, same experience with different scenery.
Right. And this does feel, I mean, it evokes a lot of the same reactions that I got from Gone Home, but at the same time, it feels very different at the same time, because you're not just sitting around going through a house, you're exploring a pretty wide area, and it doesn't really hold your hand as to where you need to go. So unlike Gone Home, where a lot of the things were locked off if you didn't until you kind of knew where everything was.
Yeah.
This was a lot more. You can probably just make like a beeline to the end of not the end, because you can actually
Vanishing speed run, 3 seconds. Yeah.
You can't actually beat the game until you've done all like the little solved all the little mysteries, side quests. But you can get through a lot of it without actually having to do that.
It's the whole world.
Which I actually realized that because the first puzzle, quote unquote, you have to do is I completely missed until I didn't realize it until I had gotten to the very end where they're like, okay, now you just need to solve this last puzzle. I'm like, fuck. Okay, I gotta walk. And it was a bit of a run, but luckily they do have a way of kind of opening up the area so that we can get back to the beginning a little faster. But
yeah. Very important.
Do either of y'all remember the name of the? It's not out yet. The Gone Home follow-up.
Oh gosh, the thing in space, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be on a space station, and it sounds like it's gonna be the kind of deal where like the AI for the space station maybe isn't a little trustworthy.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm liking that.
I will check that out.
It certainly has a good, potential to it. It sounds like it might be a little bit more involved than Gone Home was, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. So, yeah. I think that's not till next year, I believe, is when that one's coming out.
Which is when our next episode is going to be.
Quite
a month from now, right?
No, hopefully we'll start doing
proves.
these more regularly. Of course, we're also getting kind of close to the end of the year, so who knows now. But yeah, we're reaching the 3-minute deadline, and I think we're probably mostly out of games at this point anyway.
Yeah, that's all we had figured on talking about.
For our main discussion. I'm sure we'll have more topics in the future and more games to discuss in future episodes. Probably next time we won't do video games. We'll probably switch up topics and talk about something else fun. I don't know what yet. Right now we're mostly in promoting targeted mode, so
right.
Be patient
independent
with us.
Western that we put together. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that that's done, I'll be able to get back into playing some more games. So next video game episode, I'll actually have more to say.
Yeah,
than just,
nobody think I was being rude to Jack by not asking him what he's playing.
It crossed my mind a couple of times. Like, man, people are gonna think
No.
they're being real jerks to me. But
I just happened to know he wasn't playing anything. So
who
that's
cares
all.
about what you want, Jack?
I thought I was being a jerk to Jack. I apologize.
Oh, you
for
didn't
not
even
being...
know that I hadn't played, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just you being yourself.
But thank you very much for all of you in the chat. Thanks for anybody else listening to this in the archives, and we hope you will tune in next time.
Woo! Thank
Good night,
you,
guys.